Welcome to WisdomTrek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2710 of our trek. The purpose of WisdomTrek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. Today, we reach the powerful conclusion of our conversation in Psalm 85, covering verses 8 through 13 in the New Living Translation. In our last trek, we explored the first half of this poignant communal lament. We heard the people's prayer for revival. Anchored in God's past faithfulness, you have restored the fortunes of Israel, and you have forgiven the guilt of your people. Psalm 85, 1-3. Yet their plea was urgent, asking God to restore us again and to show us your unfailing love. Psalm 85, 4-7. They were caught in the in-between, that painful gap between the miracle of the return from exile and the full, glorious reality of true national revival. Now the psalmist shifts from pleading to listening, confident that God will speak peace and provide the perfect vision for their complete restoration. This final section beautifully describes how God's saving presence will transform the land and the people, bringing a divine harmony where love and truth, justice and peace meet and embrace. This vision of God's saving power is the glorious answer to their cry for restoration. So, let's open our hearts to this prophetic promise, recognizing the divine symmetry that only God can orchestrate. This first section is titled The Promise of Peace and the Meeting of Virtues, Psalm 85, 8-11. I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. But let them not return to foolish ways. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, so our land will be filled with his glory. Unfailing love and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. The psalmist makes a conscious, deliberate choice. Here to stop pleading and start listening, I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. This is a pivotal moment in any lament. After pouring out our anxiety and our fears, the next step is to quiet our souls and incline our ear towards the divine. The psalmist expresses confidence that God will speak peace, shalom, which in the Hebrew worldview is not just the absence of conflict, but total well-being, harmony, and wholeness. This promise of shalom is conditional, but let them not return to foolish ways. God's people must actively participate in their own revival. The restoration is offered, but they must choose to walk away from the spiritual foolish ways that led to their former suffering. The warning is clear. True peace requires sustained obedience and integrity. The psalmist then declares the nearness of their salvation. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, so our land will be filled with his glory. Salvation, Yeshua, their full deliverance, is not a distant hope. It is near, close at hand for those who fear him, yer, which means reverence, awe, and worshipful obedience. When that salvation arrives, the result is breathtaking. Our land will be filled with his glory. This glory, kavod, is the visible manifestation of God's majestic presence. The devastation of the land, lamented in previous psalms like 79, will be reversed by the radiant presence of God himself. The most magnificent part of this vision is the divine harmony that God's presence creates. Unfailing love and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. This is stunning poetic imagery presenting four divine attributes as heavenly beings descending to earth and embracing one another. Unfailing love, hesed, God's steadfast covenant-keeping mercy, meets truth, emet, God's faithfulness and reliability. These two, often tested by human sin, now find perfect reconciliation. Righteousness, tzedek, God's perfect justice and moral integrity, kisses peace, shalom, wholeness, and harmony. The righteousness that demands judgment and the peace that desires wholeness find their resolution in a single, affectionate moment. This harmony is the answer to the chaos the people experienced. Only God's saving presence, facilitated by his sovereign plan, can perfectly reconcile the demands of justice. He must punish sin, and the desires of mercy. He must save his people. This perfect union is achieved through the work of the Messiah, who satisfied the demands of truth and righteousness, while simultaneously granting love and peace to humanity. This next section is titled, Flourishing and the Unfolding of Blessing, Psalm 85, 12-13. Yes, the Lord pours down blessing, and our land will yield its abundant harvests. Righteousness goes as a herald before him, preparing the way for his steps. The reconciliation of these divine virtues in the land has a profound, tangible effect. Yes, the Lord pours down blessing, and our land will yield its abundant harvests. The prosperity that the people desperately prayed for is guaranteed when God's character is fully manifest. The barrenness of the land, a sign of God's displeasure, will be reversed. The Lord will pour down blessing, leading to abundant harvests. This agricultural flourishing is the visible, undeniable sign that the time of God's favor has fully returned. It is the restoration they prayed for, manifested in the very soil beneath their feet. The psalm concludes by describing the procession of the divine king into his restored land. Righteousness goes as a herald before him, preparing the way for his steps. This is a grand royal image. The King of Glory, God himself, is returning to fully inhabit his land. But he doesn't enter without preparation. Righteousness, that moral integrity which was so absent in the human rulers of Psalm 82 and so lacking in the rebellious ancestors of Psalm 78, now acts as a herald, a messenger who prepares the way. Righteousness precedes God, ensuring that the path is clean and established according to his moral law. The phrase preparing the way for his steps is a prophetic image that assures the people that God's presence is ordered, intentional, and permanent. Where God walks, blessing and justice follow. This final image assures the community that when God acts, his holiness and justice are not threats, but the very things that guarantee their peace and their prosperity. It is a perfect end to the communal lament, confirming that the shalom they so desperately prayed for is dependent entirely upon the tzedek righteousness that God brings. This profound conclusion to Psalm 85 transforms the nation's longing into a vision of hope, reminding them and us that God's restoration is comprehensive, reconciling spiritual truth with physical prosperity and securing the land for his eternal glory. As we conclude with wisdom on the trek, the prerequisites for peace, the profound wisdom of Psalm 85 for our journey lies in the prerequisites for peace. The psalmist teaches us 3 vital steps for moving from national or personal chaos to shalom. 1. Cultivate a listening heart. The restoration begins not with a great battle, but with silence. I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying. When we are in the in-between, we must stop shouting our pleas and start listening for God's peace. We must be careful not to return to foolish ways, understanding that our stubbornness is often the greatest impediment to our blessing. 2. Recognize the divine harmony. We must understand that God's great work reconciles seeming opposites. When we suffer, we often feel that God's love and his justice are at odds. This psalm assures us that unfailing love and truth have met together. We cannot separate God's mercy from his moral law. Salvation is the point where righteousness and peace can finally kiss. The cross of Christ perfectly achieved this reconciliation for all who trust him. 3. Prepare the path for righteousness. The greatest promise is that righteousness goes as a herald before him. If we want to see God's glory fill our land, our lives, our homes, our communities, we must let righteousness clear the way. We must actively choose to live with integrity, honesty, and moral purity, thereby preparing the path for the King to enter and grant us the abundant harvest that follows his steps. Our hope for revival is not a passive waiting. It is an active listening and an intentional commitment to live righteously, trusting that God's steps will inevitably bring shalom. If you found this podcast insightful, subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us and come along tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through this Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. As we take this trek together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, leave a living legacy each day. I'm Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom.